Hey everyone, welcome back. Persona here. So we've got another exciting video for you today. We're going to make a Dofus tier list. We're going to make one for 3v3 and one for 1v1, but it's going to be based off of data. So rather than all of the ones that you will typically see on YouTube, etc., that are sort of very opinion based, it's like, hey, this is my tier list, etc. Well, instead, ours is going to be based off of the data. So it's not going to be opinion based. It's going to be based off what the average or what the data from the Dofus Coliseum leaderboards tells us. So we've done some work. We've put together it's part of the Dofus Coliseum dashboard that we've been building in the international pub. And what it is, I mean, this is just a quick overview. And this one is the average rating for each class from the top 100 of each class, looking at the average rating. There is additional data like the win rates, etc. There are some more graphs different to this one, but for this, the purpose of this tier list, we're just going to be going off this one because it's quite a nice and simple, easy one to follow. And the way we're going to do it, you'll see from right to left here, so towards the right, or going up the x-axis, I should say, is the increasing average rating of a class. So we're just going to work our way backwards. So if we look into it, as it stands, and this is for 1v1 now, the number one class for 1v1 is the Panda, average rating of 3682, win rate of 70%. And then second place, we've got the Eka Flip. No surprises there. Third place, Uganak. A little bit surprising. Personally, wouldn't have expected it to be there myself, but I guess it did get a bit of a buff a few months back, so probably explains why it's being played a bit more there. Followed by the SRAM. No surprises on that one. SRAMs, yeah, definitely should be at the top. Personally, I hate playing against SRAMs in 1v1. Followed by the Fognaut. Yeah, makes sense. Sacria. I know a lot of people playing Sacria. People like Nevlon, for example, Zeoff. They play very specific legendary builds, which become increasingly difficult to kill as the games go on. And then we've got the Sedida. Quite a high average win rate there on the Sedida. Followed by the Zelor. Zelors, yeah, I mean, they're strong everywhere at the minute. It's quite a high skill gap or skill base to really compete on Zelors in 1v1. You got, I think, players like Infi, for example. I think he's actually the number one overall in 1v1, or he was a few days ago when I looked. They're really sort of carrying that average rating there. Then we have the Heliotrope. Obviously, they had a rework a few months ago. They seem to be somewhere in the middle of the pack, so not doing too badly. Followed by Rogues. I think Rogue's always going to be quite good in 1v1, given their capability to just one-shot a character at any point. And we have the IOP, quite a popular class in 1v1. You see streamers like Tarkan, for example, using it. Does very well. Ever since they've gained the shield capabilities, they've been really strong in 1v1. Then we have the Osamodus. This is the current Osamodus, so this is prior to the rework. So this one, in a few days or in a couple of weeks when the update's been released, this will be subject to change. Be very interesting to see what happens with the Osamodus. Then we have the Forge Lance, followed by the Kra. Kras, yeah, they're not too bad in 1v1. But okay, they're on the lower end, but they are capable. You've got people like Barry playing Kra, do very, very, very well. Followed by the Mask. My personal pain point, this one, they are just not kitted out for 1v1. They've got high damage, but only at short range, and it's quite easy to play around that and sort of chip away at them over a game. And then we have the Anaripsa. Yeah, makes sense. Followed by Hupmage, Enotroff, and the Fecker. So all sort of the support-based classes at the bottom, they don't have the erosion. They don't have any sort of major debuffs. Well, I guess Enotroffs have debuff, but yeah, they're missing the erosion and damage output to compete against these top classes at the top of the rating. So that's the 1v1 outlook. For 3v3, it's a bit of a different picture. all of a sudden you have Zelors by far ahead of all the other classes. I think when I checked, there was something like 23 under the top 100 overall were Zelors. So out of all the classes, 23% are Zelors in the top 100, which is an insane stat. Very, very, very strong at the minute. High damage output, lots of movement, positional plays, and they can buff AP and do debuff on the opponents as well. So see lots of Zelor teams in Colosseum. Followed by the Forge Lance, very strong sort of erosion based, well, AoE based damage really. They've got erosion as well. They've got a bit of everything within their kit. So not surprising there. It does seem to be sort of the damage class of choice in pre-made 3v3 teams at the minute. Followed by Sacria. I see quite a few of these. Less so of the tank build, more so of the sort of the strength-based amateur builds, etc. coming through, do big damage, lots still quite tanky and high vit based, but yeah, seems to be quite strong at the minute. Then we have the Panda. Panda, since they're like minor tweaks or rework a few months ago, have been pretty strong, especially Chance Pandas with the poisons there. Feka, so after being the worst class in 1v1, they move up to being one of the top classes in 3v3. I think their support capabilities in sort of the group format really puts them at the top, so it sort of makes sense here. Followed by the Eneripsa, again another class that was near the bottom in 1v1, but in 3v3 it's a different beast. It's able to make use of the AP buff for a team, the healing capabilities. It's just a very solid pick overall. I think often it's the pairing of the Eneripsa and a class like a Zelor that gives you like a really winning combo in 3v3. Then we have, so I guess moving down to some of the damage-based classes, we have Ecaflip, so quite a fair bit behind the Forge, but then it's sort of the second choice damage class, closely followed by the Sedida. So not necessarily a full damage based class, but it's one of those classes that people just hate to go against. They're a bit of a nuisance. Chance Sedidas at the minute, very capable of doing lots of healing. Damage output's not too bad either. Alright, then we've got three classes, all very close to each other. So we have Iops, then we have the Fognauts, and then we have the Heliotrope as well. Yeah, so they seem to be doing quite well. Won't go into too much detail on those ones. Followed by the Mask. So Mask, yeah, sort of middle of the grouping really. It's not the best, it's not the worst. I think Masks are good at what they do in terms of the shields, but it's not unique anymore. You've got other classes like Forge Lance, for example, like Iops that can do similar sort of shielding capabilities. Even Ecaflips, since their adjustment a couple weeks back, they've had a buff to their shielding capabilities as well. So explains why Masks, traditionally, I think they were perhaps one of the top classes in 3v3, but now they're sort of falling behind a little bit. I think their spell kit's a bit dated, to be honest with you. So I think, personally, Angama, they're one of the classes that need a rework. So moving down the list, we then have Ugnak. Yeah, sort of not the first choice when it comes to erosion-based classes at the minute, but it's okay. Followed by the Osmodus. Again, Osmodus is changing soon, so I won't comment too much on that one. Hupper Mage, yeah, it seems to be struggling 1v1 and 3v3 a bit here. Enotroff as well. Kra. SRAM. So SRAM's an interesting one. It was very highly rated in 1v1, but in 3v3 it sort of struggles a little bit more. I think that's because in group formats, it's easier to sort of predict where trap chains may be or may not be, depending if it doesn't really work as much of a combo in 3v3, especially at higher ladder. So it sort of requires being played differently. And then the Rogue. So Rogue, which was somewhere in the middle in the 1v1, in 3v3, it's very poor. I think that's probably because of the AoE sort of effects from Forge up here that really sort of push it down the list. Right, okay, so going off the data then, in number one spot, we have the Pandawa. So we'll just move him up to God tier, and then it was closely followed by Ecaflip. Ugnak up there. Ugnak, it's strong, so I think it could be played in that sort of top tier bracket. Personally, I think maybe it's the weakest out of these four, but we'll go with the data. In terms of the very good, so the next tier down, we got Fognaut, we have the Sacria, we have the Sedida, and the Zelor, which, to be honest, looks about right. Then one down from this in good, we have the Eliotrope, the Rogue, and the IOP. Then moving down to average or perhaps situational, depends on the map, etc. We have the Osamodus, we have the Forge Lance, and then we have the Kra. In terms of ranking the ones in the bottom, or like the poor brackets, I think probably Mask is the best out of a bad bunch, followed by Enaripsa, then the Harper Mage, then the Enatroph, and then the Fecker. So, yeah, I think overall this is a pretty fair assessment. I think Panda, Ecaflip, SRAM for sure for me are top tier. Uganak, I think it depends. I think they can be played very well and very strong, but again, no, maybe they do belong up there. Maybe they do. Thinking about it, I'm just trying to think of the matchups they can have. Ever since they buffed the chance build on the Uganak, has been very strong. The in-tempo reduction kind of builds can also work quite well. So, yeah, I think overall this looks fairly good. I think Fognauts just outside of the god tier makes sense. Sacria, another solid pick. But what I would say, I mean, observing this is that there seems to be a clear dominance of the erosion-based classes. So the likes of the Ecaflip, Uganax, Ram, Fogger, okay, IOP and Rogue a little bit lower down perhaps. But yeah, overall, the erosion-based classes seem to be out on top. And that's probably because they are, well, over the last few years, Ankama have buffed the sort of the protection element of those kind of classes, either directly or indirectly. So IOPS, for example, they gave lots of shields via spells like Virtue, etc. But then the introduction of, say, the Dokoko, and now the Sylvan Dofus, the Black Spotted Dofus, gives these classes a lot more defensive capabilities in 1v1. So they're able to do high damage, they're able to apply the erosion, and they're able to keep themselves alive long enough that sort of the classes in this poor bit are really susceptible to erosion. So all of these guys, they don't have that big burst damage to break through the protection of the classes at the top, which is why they're probably in this position of not being too great in 1v1. I think the exception really is Panda, but Panda's able to do the unhealing state whilst also doing high damage from various different ranges, either close combat or at quite a distance. They've got high mobility, so they're able to play around a lot of the mechanics of a lot of different classes. So yeah, I think this is actually, on looking at it on balance, is quite a fair reflection of 1v1. So far, the data is looking pretty good. So we'll reset it now for 3v3. So for 3v3, by far was the Zealor at 1v1. Very, very strong. I mean, the number of Zealors in the top 100 is absolutely insane. I think they need an emergency nerf. Forged Lances, I'd say one tier down. Very strong. Seems to be the erosion class of choice, given its defensive properties, AoE erosion, and it's just very flexible in terms of its gameplay. Sacria is looking fairly strong as well. Panda, also strong in this game mode. Fecker, rising from the poor element in 1v1 to being very robust in 3v3. The protection sort of elements really come into fruition in this game mode. And the same goes for the Enaripsa, having the AP buff capabilities. Often you see a lot of Enaripsa teams that go with the Zelor, and you end up with huge AP buffs on your team, which can be very difficult to counter. One step down from this, so looking into what's good, we've got the Ecaflip, Sedida, IOP, then next was the Fognaut, and the Eliotrope. Yeah, so here we're seeing some of the erosion-based characters coming in as well. Movement, sort of positional play from the Fogonaut and the Heliotrope, and the Sedida. I mean, Sedida is sort of a general sort of safe pick. I don't think it's really excelling in anything, but yeah, chance Sedida seems to be quite strong at the minute. In terms of average or situational classes, we've got the Mask, Urganak, and the Osamodus. I think people always assume that masks are very strong, but when you look at the meta, if you were to pick either a mask or an Enerips or a mask or a Feka, you're probably going to be going for the Feka or any. So the mask really sort of loses its viability here in the meta. And it can often be sort of very very map focused or map based as well, and depending on what kind of composition you're going against. Then in Poor, we had the Upper Mage, followed by the Inatroph, then the Kra, SRAM, and then the Rogue in last place. I think Rogue probably suffers the most in terms of the really strong meta of Forge, Panda, Sakri, especially the Forge, actually. The AoE from Forges is just, it counters Rogue so well. It can become very difficult to get your bombs away in that kind of gameplay. SRAM struggles if they're playing Mist against a Forge Lance. It can be quite tricky. Kraz, I think, just sort of, I mean, they're very situational based in terms of the gameplay. Though, if you're able to rush them quite quickly, then they're quite easy to counter. So yeah, I think this is a fair reflection for 3v3. I have an obvious bias with Mask. I think people often think it's like one of these top classes, but it's really not. Once you sort of see the teams that people play, there's always a better choice at the minute than a Mask. Because so many classes are able to give shields themselves. Like IOPS can give shields, Fogonauts can give shields, Eneripses can even the Forge can as well. So the Forge pretty much is a very similar spell to Plastron, for example. So yeah, I think that's a fair reflection of the meta from the last few months. Coming to an end now. I think something to look out for really with the reworks coming up is the Osamodus. Looks very strong after an initial just testing earlier today. I think, especially in 1v1, Osa has the potential to go right to the top. In 3v3, I reckon it could be getting up to sort of this very good level, somewhere around with the Any, perhaps. They're getting the AP buffs back. They've got some additional sort of going back to the roots of being a bit more summon spammy based. So yeah, really looking forward to it. Initial impressions, as I said, are very impressive. I think it's maybe a bit overtuned at the minute, so I think it might be reduced in the beta, but we'll see. Cool. So that's it for now. I'll see you all next time. We're probably going to come back again with some OSA content, so stay tuned, and we'll see you again soon. Cheers.